Okay. Hi, everybody. Today I am here with Katie Narrell. She's going to be our Chief Justice for the 2024 YIG Conference. And thank you so much for meeting with me. This is so fun.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so for the first question, how long have you been a part of YIG?
This will be my fifth year, because I did YIG in middle school too.
Cool, cool. And you were a lawyer last year. So what was it like being a lawyer?
I was a lawyer 2 years ago.
Oh, my
Um,
bad.
you're good. You have to be an associate justice before you can be chief justice.
Mhm.
So chief justice is always the second year. Being a lawyer is really, really fun. It's really scary because you basically have to talk uninterrupted for like 20 minutes, which um, which I assume they do in legislation too, but maybe not 20 minutes straight. Um, It's it's so I feel goodness. I think it is such an easy way to make friends being a lawyer because everyone there is absolutely terrified and there's only like 60 of you in the small room. So it's kind of you're forced to interact. Um, and you really all work together because you're all arguing the same thing. Like everyone's arguing the same sides of the case. Um, and so you can ask someone like, "Hey, what's your case? What case law did you use?" Or what was that thing you said or whatever, compliment them on their argument, whatever. Um, and it's a really easy way to build camaraderie because you can all really rely on each other and everyone's always willing to help because everyone's so nice.
That's so sweet. Aw. And so you're the Chief Justice this year. What made you decide to run for it or apply for the job?
I ran for Chief Justice because I very distinctly remember it was back in like 2020 during COVID. I hadn't even done courts before, and I was talking to my brother who did YIG in legislation, like his just like senior year. And I told him, I was like, oh, I want to do YIG, but I don't know if I want to do legislation. I think I want to do something else. I didn't know there was something else. He told me about courts, and I was like, oh, well, can you like become like chief justice in courts? And he was like, yeah. And I thought I had never done it before, so I didn't know it was like student run elections. I was like, I'm gonna befriend like everyone, and I'm gonna get the like adults who run it to like trust me, so they choose me. So I've just wanted it for a very long, long time, and then I almost didn't run, um, because I was so scared of losing and I didn't want that. Like, I didn't want to be embarrassed. But like, I know people who have lost elections. I've lost elections. And I guess I realized I'm never really that embarrassed because I know that whoever did get the part is qualified and worthy of it. So I figured, like, why not? Like, I've wanted it for so long, it would be doing more harm to me to not run
Yeah.
than it would be worried about being embarrassed about losing.
Hmm.
So I decided to, oh, sorry.
Hey, good, good.
I decided to run. I decided to run just to do it so I could say that I did run and not like give up on little baby Katie's dreams.
That's so fun. All right. So, what does your job as Justice exactly entail? I know you oversee a lot of the bills, but what is that? How does that process work and all that?
So for Chief Justice, it when all of the lawyers argue in front of the court, we hear that. Obviously, we listen to all usually about 32, I think this year, rounds of arguments. And we decide, we like listen to all of it. We tally up like how they're doing, because they get graded on a lot. They get graded on presentation, on the quality of their argument, on their use of case law, on how they answer our questions. Um, and then that's a big thing though, questions, is we have to know, make sure we know the case as much as possible. And I say we, meaning me and the other justices. Um, we need to make sure we know the case as much as possible because when those lawyers come in there, if they are missing just like a tiny like 2% of their argument that could really help them, we can ask a question to kind of prompt the answer that we're looking for that they left out their main argument. Um, And so it's really just a lot of helping lawyer teams, and they usually don't like that we ask questions, but we do kind of have to. Um, and specifically as Chief Justice, I kind of have to facilitate that. So I start all of the meetings. I'm the one that like I read announcements. Um, I have been annoying my justices since like August. We've had a group chat. They get almost they get a lot of messages from me, especially now that the Yig case is out. Of me just saying like, hey, by the way, here's this micro detail that you may need to know at some point. Um, I'm just really passionate about it, so I never shut up about it. But before the conference, we look over everything. Like we read everyone's written arguments, and that's how we decide awards like best written brief. Um, and it kind of gives us a snapshot of what the conference is going to look like. I know I kind of told that out of order. I said the conference and then before, but um, yeah, Chief Justice is mainly to facilitate everything that all the lawyers do. I was talking to Yao Zhao, who was the last Chief Justice, and he told me that it's not as much fun being Chief Justice because you get to do all of the fun things and hang out with your friends and help people, but you also have to be the one like controlling all that fun. And so I think that's gonna be my biggest struggle, just because I love everyone there and I want all their ideas and everything they want to do for them to be able to do. But I will have to kind of push them in other directions sometimes.
Yeah. How do you address if people are getting like a little too rowdy? Are you super mean about it or
Um, okay, so this is more of a problem at MUN courts, to be honest. Which I was always just a lawyer in, but you kind of have to lay down the law with it because people are like we're all just teenagers in there, and while we are all capable of great things and of being mature, sometimes when you're excited, when you're nervous in a new place, you just start yapping, you just start chit-chatting, and sometimes that chit-chatting gets a little too loud. So you kind of just gavels are really helpful in that respect because you can kind of just go,
Mhm.
attention delegates, lower your voices. I think more often we have a problem less with people talking. Like, yes, sometimes people do like start whispering a little too loud during a case or in between cases. They're heard all the way from the Capitol, from the Supreme Court building. Um, but a lot of times we have trouble with people not paying attention and not participating because everyone's like a little scared of like, well, like I said earlier, like it's a really helpful environment if you talk to people, but sometimes people are a little scared of that. So usually the first couple days it's come on, get up, talk, like be friends with one another. In the last couple days I like, okay, too friendly, quiet down. But the gavel, that's the main law. You, like that's I cannot think of the word. That's the main way you lay down the law is with the gavel.
I like the gavel too, because one time I donated like $5 and I got to hit the gavel. It was pretty cool stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
and it's the best.
So you've been a part of courts for a long time. What's the most interesting case you've had?
There have been a lot. I think freshman year was probably the most different case I've had from the rest of them. Um, Freshman year, we argued a case where a school was providing free condoms to kids through like this like health department, through their health department, and parents of the kids were suing the school because they believe that parents should be in charge of that kind of thing. And so we got to learn a lot about what rights a student has versus what rights that parents have over them in the school. Um, we learned about a lot of cases that I've had to look at since for like AP government, like Wisconsin v. Yoder and Income Vitale, that kind of thing. Um, so I think that was probably the most, and that dealt with like 14th Amendment questions and like First Amendment, but a lot of other cases usually deal with 14th, but more of like a are the is the judicial system fair rather than parents having the right to parent their children, which is what that case dealt with in respect to the 14th. Um, but a lot of them deal with like arrest warrants and was this person legally arrested? Is this punishment too severe? Eighth Amendment kind of stuff. But that one was the most different, and I think about it a lot.
Mhm. And this is just a question I had. So, for the cases you're given, are they like made up, or do students actually write them and then ask them or ask you to present them when you're like a lawyer?
Well, they are made up,
Okay.
um, but I'm not 100% sure of their source. I know that there are a lot of like the US courts.com, they make, if you go and look at a specific case, they'll show you another fake case where all the names and locations are switched. Um, but ours don't come from there.
Mhm.
And so they're made up, but I'm not sure by whom.
That's
But they're based
cool.
on real cases.
Yeah, it's all good. And so, as Associate Justice last year and Chief Justice this year, how do you remain impartial in a case or like not have an opinion? Well, you have an opinion,
Well,
but like not let that influence totally like go by the law.
I think it's because I'm just always so impressed by the lawyers because you can score really highly and still lose your case. It's all just about like the little things that you do because we don't necessarily have to argue who is more convincing. Because I've had some of the best lawyers I know argue against each other, and I'm just like, real world, I wouldn't know how to argue, but because I have to grade on based on your rebuttal or how you answer questions, it's really we rule in favor of people based on the entirety of their time speaking and their entirety of time at the conference, that I don't have to rule in favor of which side I think is more right. Like going back to that case I was talking about, if I had been a justice then, I definitely would have sided with the schools, not the parents. Um, just constitutionally, I thought that was more right. But I still would have chosen lawyer teams who were arguing for the parents because they could still have answered my questions better than anyone else there. And it
Hmm.
didn't matter that they were arguing for the side I didn't agree with. I am just hoping that they do their best. And that's my what I support the most, not either side, but the lawyer teams do the best.
That's so
So
good.
everyone wins.
Hmm. And how do you help prepare the new lawyer teams that are coming in? Or are you allowed to help them prepare? Or because I know, like, as a
Yeah,
freshman, that's probably really scary for you.
it was, and it was all online, and I wasn't in person at school. I never got to work with my partner in person. So it was scary. What I've done, I'm kind of just relying on what Chief Justices have done in the past, like kind of picking and choosing across conferences that I really liked. So a couple years ago, Emma Wu, she did a Zoom meeting before the conference where any lawyers could just join in and ask any questions to all the officers there. And I found that really helpful. And she's biggest inspiration. Love her. And so I am doing that this week. On Thursday, we'll have a Zoom meeting. I've been
Oh,
sending out a lot of I've been sending out a lot of emails to the lawyers. Not quite as many texts as the justices are getting, but I sent out a couple, kind of just with my biggest pieces of advice. Because there's a lot of things that if you don't know to do it, you're not gonna think about it. And I think I've learned a lot over my time as being a lawyer, but my freshman year, like I didn't know like anything. Um, and so and I had some people to help me. I had like Yao and everyone that could help me from Central, but I didn't have access to help if I hadn't have had justice at my school. And so I just want to make sure that the kids who don't have court officers, because there's only officers from like 3 schools, but we have like 11 different schools doing courts. And so I'm just trying to make sure that the help is as widespread as possible. We recorded a video last year and re-recorded it this year, kind of just going over all the basics and putting our faces out there so they know like when you come in, you know exactly who's going to be up on that bench. You know that like we're more friends than just like these people you need to be scared of arguing in front of. So just kind of throwing information at them as much as I can and hoping some of it sticks.
that's so
So anyway,
nice. So sweet of you to do that. I bet those freshmen really appreciate it.
I hope so. It's so scary to be a first time. So
Definitely. And then you're in charge of the docket, right? For all the cases. How do you
mhm.
pick and choose which ones go first or like the order of it? Is there a certain way or
Excuse me. Yeah. So before the conference, we get everyone's written assignments, which is basically their whole argument written down, and we read through it, and that just going to tell us how much case law they have, which really decides how strong case law is basically evidence. You're saying the Supreme Court ruled this in the past, you should rule it now. And that's what we take in the most. So it proves how much work they've put into it, how much they understand the case. We can just see how fleshed out their argument is, how convincing it is. And so kind of that's how we set the docket, is by looking and saying, like, these people kind of had cases that we want to see these points against each other, or we just think these people are the most prepared, and it may not, and it would just be the most challenging to each of them for them to go up against each other. The way it works is first year teams that no one on the team has any experience, they go up against each other for first round. And people who do have experience go up against each other. So it's not like a novice team is going to be going up against a 3-year team.
Yeah.
And if they are, it's the only time I've had a novice team go up against an advanced team is when that novice team was just like, their brief was so good that I felt that they were prepared to do that. But I usually don't put them up against the 3-year team. You know what I mean? And the best, or the cases that we felt were the most like well written, or the lawyers that we know have argued really well in the past, we put them as model case, where basically they're going to argue, they have a little bit longer time to argue, and they're going to do it in front of everyone, which everyone does, but they're going to do it. We want everyone to watch them because we know they're going to use the correct courtroom etiquette. We know they're going to have a good rebuttal. We just want them to exemplify what a good argument looks like. And so we decide that kind of based on, we've seen how you argued in the past, and we've seen how good your brief is. And together we think you're going to be a good example for these lawyers. So that's how we set the number one. And then everything else just kind of falls into place like a puzzle.
Yeah,
We take a while on it.
Yeah, I bet that does take a while. Okay, last question. What do you have to say to all the new court members, not press members, sorry, lawyers, and just everybody? What's like your word of encouragement?
Everyone was like a novice team once. So you may be thinking like, oh, those people up there, they know every single thing and they're so scary. But I swear we're not. We've been in a novice lawyer's shoes, and we have been terrified to argue, and we have been caught off guard by questions, and we have lost cases. So don't think that you are struggling completely alone. Everyone there is going through the exact same thing. Everyone's there to support you.
Okay. Thank you so much for having this interview with me. This has been so fun. I didn't realize I learned so much. This is cool.
Well, I could talk about courts forever, so
I'm so glad. All right. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you at YIG. Yay.
bye.
Bye.